Morning. My name is Courtney Clip. I'm the director of the post-bac program here at LMU. So let's go through our agenda for today. So I'm going to give you a general overview of our post-bac program. Then I'm going to talk about coursework here and the timeline, the criteria for admission into our program, the application process, and then cost and financial aid. As we go along, if you want to go ahead and ask some questions, put them in the chat. I will probably wait to get to them until the end. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. All right. So our objective here, our program objective, our program is geared for what we call career changers. Okay, so these are people who are coming into our program without most of the prerequisites that they need in order to apply to medical or dental school. Okay, so this typically means that they aren't people who are coming in with, for example, a bachelor's degree, right? So we're more looking at people who are coming in with a psychology degree, for instance. Now, that said, we do take a small number of academic enhancers every year, right? So those would be the people who have taken all of those classes that they need to apply to medicine or dentistry, but maybe they didn't do as well as they wanted to, and they want an opportunity to retake some of those courses. So that's actually exactly the way our program here works. So instead of some career or academic enhancer programs will allow students to take upper division courses if they came in with a degree in, say, biology. In our program, we would have students repeat some of those prerequisites, right? So the Gen Chems, the Gen Bios. So that is kind of unique to our program. But for the most part, we are focused on those career changers. All right, so if you were to be a student here, you would have a team of people working with you and supporting you on your journey. So that is me over there on the left. Just a little bit about my background. I have been in this role here at LMU for over 8 years now. Before this, I worked at UCLA. The most recent position I had at UCLA was in the David Geffen School of Medicine. I was working with students who were getting ready to go into residency. Prior to that, I worked in the Fielding School of Public Health with MPH students. I was helping them get internships that were part of their degree requirements. So I've really been in this general area of health professions advising for quite a while now. My academic background, I have a master's degree in career counseling. So the other member of our team here is Erica Zocher. She couldn't be here today, so I'll go ahead and do a quick intro for her. She works in a separate office than me. She works in our career and professional development office. She has been in this role, kind of also working with students in health profession for probably a few years now. So she's a great person to talk to about getting extracurricular activities, maybe looking over a personal statement, those types of things. We also have our Health Professions Advisory Committee. So this is a committee made up of 5 faculty in the sciences in the Seabrook College of Science and Engineering and myself. And we work together in the summertime when students are applying to medical and dental school. Our charge in the summer is helping students with or writing committee letters for students. And I will talk to you a little bit more about that in a moment. All right, so some things about LMU, some of the highlights here. If you were to be a student here, one of the things I always hear from our students that they love is that our class sizes are really small, right? So we have only about 14 to 19 students in each of the labs. The corresponding lectures are a little bit bigger, usually around like 50 students or so, but this setup allows our students to really get to know our professors. And this is important, of course, because these professors are going to be the ones that are writing letters of recommendation, individual letters of recommendation for you to get into medical and dental school. So we set up a really nice environment for that. If you were a student here, you'd be spending a lot of time in our life sciences building. It's probably about 8 years old now. It's a state-of-the-art building. and it was actually voted one of the best life sciences buildings in the country by Princeton Review a couple years ago. So it's a really nice place to spend your time. We also offer free tutoring in the fall and spring for our basic science courses. So those would be the ones that you would be taking here at LMU. This is group tutoring that is led by a student here, like an undergraduate student who's done really well in these courses. We also have, again, going back to, getting to know the professors. They are very big on students attending office hours. And so that is just really part of our culture here that faculty really know the students and the students are supported to be successful academically. All right, so another building on campus that you might find yourself out quite a bit is our Hannon Library. And, just to give you a little peek of, what it looks like from the inside. Really nice view there that's looking out over West Los Angeles. And if you kind of walk out of the building, there's a little peek of the ocean right there from campus. So, very close to the beach. Our students sometimes take a break and go down to the beach for a little bit and come back in between classes. That's kind of a pretty common thing that our students do here. Okay, so committee letter service. So I had talked to you about our Health Professions Advisory Committee doing this committee letter service. And so let me tell you a little bit more about that. So a committee letter, you can think of it kind of as a cover letter that goes on top of additional individual letters of recommendation. And it is essentially LMU's recommendation of you as an applicant to medical or dental school. As part of this process, you would do a mock interview with one of the faculty on the Health Professions Advisory Committee. Okay, so getting a little bit of practice before you get out there and do the real thing, later on down the road. We also take a look at your application. When you think your application is perfect, and this is your application to medical or dental school, you send it to us and we take a look at it, give you, any little feedback, make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and make sure that your application is perfect as a final set of eyes for you. We also will, or I will actually submit all of your letters of recommendation for you. So you will gather all of your individual letters, you'll put them in an Interfolio account. I will download all of them and attach them to your committee letter and upload them directly to your application. So that's just kind of a nice thing that our students don't really have to worry about. There's so much going on with this application process. It's just one less thing on your plate. The other thing is that support and coaching, of course, throughout the application process. And any questions that you have, I am available to you. We will be meeting one-on-one to talk, of course, about when you're going to take the MCAT, when you're going to take the DAT, what to expect through the whole application cycle. So I am very present and in your life during this whole process. All right, so there's a couple of classes that I teach here at LMU. They're called Health Professions Advising 1 and 2. These classes are specifically for our post-bac students. Okay, no undergrads are in these courses. And what we're doing is we are working on pieces of your application from the very beginning of your time here. Okay, so talking about interviewing, personal statements, letters of recommendation, who to get letters of recommendation from, how to ask people for letters of recommendation. If you're trying to go, you're planning to go to medical school, we'll talk about MD versus DO, and if DO is right for you. We've had, somebody in the past come in and talk about test taking strategies for the MCAT and the DAT. We'll do a workshop on secondaries. I've had people come in and talk about financing health professional school. And then often my very last class in the spring is a newly admitted panel. So from the prior year's cohort, they will come in and talk about how their application process went and give any tips and tricks to our students who are getting ready to apply. Okay, so those two courses are fall and spring after you are admitted here. So my office does some programming. One of the things that we do is mock MMIs. And so an MMI, if you're not familiar with that, is a very specific type of interview that some medical and dental students or dental schools do. So what it is are, a student would have to do several interviews right in a row. Usually they're only about 10 minutes each. All with different people. They might be asked, ethical decision-making questions, those types of things. And so since this is a unique type of interview and a lot of people haven't gone through this before, we do a practice run, and then you get feedback from our faculty and staff from the Career and Professional Development Office. So it's pretty nice evening. I also host admissions panels, so you'll have an opportunity to meet one-on-one with admissions officers, deans and directors from health professional schools, and then our Career and Professional Development Office every year puts on a graduate and health professions fair. And so again, that's another opportunity for you to meet admissions folks and talk to them about what you're bringing to the table and get any advice that they have about their particular school. Okay, so statistics, everybody always likes to know about stats. So for our program, number of applications, we get around 75, 80 applications every year. Our acceptance rate, we are competitive, it's approximately 50%. So just to give you some context when you're, thinking about the next step, applying to medical and dental school, nationwide, about 47% of applicants that apply to medical school are admitted. And for dental school, it is about 58%. For the last 4 years, 82% of our students were admitted to medical and dental school. And in 23-24, the last stats I have available, about 85% were admitted. So we do have a very good track record here of getting students into medical and dental school. So in 2024, our students matriculated to places all over the country. So Stanford, USC for medical and dental, Yale, Georgetown, Creighton University, Western. You can kind of see some of the other ones there. So we are getting our students into some, some pretty heavy hitters, but definitely schools all across the country. Typical coursework, if you're to be in this program, would be general biology 1 and 2 with labs, general chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, biochemistry, and calculus for life sciences. And I'm going to go over this probably a couple of more times, but it is strongly recommended that a calculus course is completed prior to matriculating to our program. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about that in a moment. Okay, so coursework and timeline. So our program has been around for probably about 14 or 15 years now, okay? And our 14-month program is our flagship. It's the one that we have been doing since this program has started. And so let me tell you what that looks like. So you would be beginning in our summer session 1, and that starts every year in mid-May. Okay, so in summer session 1, you would do general chemistry 1 and the lab. We have a summer session 2, and you would do general chemistry 2 with lab. In the fall, you would do OChem, general biology, and physics. If you hadn't done calculus before, you would complete that in the fall, and then you would take the health professions advising course. In the spring, you would be doing the second part of all of those science courses, no math for that one. And then in the summer, you would do your very last class, which would be biochemistry. Okay, no lab required for biochem, so just the lecture itself. Some optional coursework. Say you came in with, one of those courses already completed, which is okay with us, by the way. You might have the option to take a psychology class or a sociology class. It could be possible to get you into an upper division course, although that is not something I can guarantee, and I always like to be very upfront about that. We would have to petition to get you into that course. But it has happened in the past. Also a statistics course. So we have an applied statistics course. It's actually a higher level course. Calculus is a requirement to get into it. So that could be an option too. And you would be working with me throughout the program to make sure that you are getting the courses that are the best fit for you. Okay. All right. So the timeline, if you're going to do the 14-month program, so this is what that would look like. So because it is a very fast-paced and condensed program, you would be needing to study for the MCAT and the DAT while you are in the program. And so what that means is that as early as fall semester, you would be working on either CARS for the MCAT or reading comprehension for the DAT. So CARS is basically a reading comprehension section of the MCAT. You don't need a science background to study for, for either of those sections, but that would be something that you'd be working on in the fall. You would begin studying for all the other sections in January. That would be reviewing material that you went through or learned in the fall while you're learning the second part of, all of the other courses. You would take the MCAT or the DAT immediately after you finish the program. So you would take it at the end of June or early July. And then you would immediately apply for medical or dental school right around that time. Okay, so again, very fast paced. You would have a gap year. So in the gap year, that is the time when you'd be doing secondaries, interviews, and additional extracurricular activities. And then you would matriculate to medical or dental school the following fall, right? So it takes a full year to apply, okay? Because there's so many applicants that apply. It takes a full year, so you'd matriculate the following fall. All right, so all of that said, I like to pride myself on doing individualized advising with our students. And so sometimes people don't fit into those exact molds for the 14-month program. Like I had mentioned, sometimes somebody comes in with like a class already completed, and that is something that I would work with you on. The timeline actually can also be adjusted. We have a little bit of flexibility there. So we have a 20-month program. You'd be taking the exact same classes as you were taking in the 14-month program, but you'd be extending it out a little bit. So it's more of like a part-time program. You would start at the same time, so in mid-May, but you wouldn't finish until the following December. Okay, so again, that's going to stretch things out a little bit. That pushes back your application cycle by a year. So this program can be particularly good for people who haven't done a lot of the extracurriculars that are needed to be a competitive applicant. Some people come into our program with all that stuff kind of done, and the 14-month program is good for them. Sometimes the 20-month program is better for people who need to get additional stuff done, like, shadowing and things like that. We also have an 18-month program. This program starts in August, which would be starting in the fall semester, and then finishes the following December. This program tends to be particularly popular with students who are coming out of undergrad who were in a quarter-based system. So they wouldn't even finish college until the end of, or the middle of June, typically, and so they wouldn't be eligible to start in May. So that is typically the people who like to do the 18-month program. We've also had people that need to move from, potentially far away, and they just want a little bit of extra time to do that. And so August is a better fit for them. And again, I would be, talking to you about which one would be the best for you. And that is something that we would be talking about in an interview if you're invited for an interview. All right. 8 courses are needed to complete our certificate and to qualify to receive a committee letter. Okay. When I'm thinking about 8 courses, I'm not thinking about labs. For some of our programs, or for some of our classes, you sign up for labs separately than the lecture. So I'm not, a lab course wouldn't be considered a, one of the 8 courses. And also the health professions advising course isn't considered part of those 8 courses. So we're talking about 8 lecture courses, okay, to complete the certificate. And then advising continues into your gap year. So of course, there's going to be a point when you're done with this program. Let's say you do the 18-month program, you're done in December of 2027. I am available to you throughout the whole application process. So even though you're not a registered student, I am available to you until you matriculate to medical or dental school. All right. So we have a couple linkage agreements. One of them is with Western University of Health Sciences for their DO program. This is specifically for students who are on the 18 or 20-month track, okay? It does not work out with their schedules for students on the 14-month program. So the way that it would work is that, if you finish in, let's say, going back to the same example, December of 2027, you would apply for the linkage program right around the time you finish our program. Then you would, interview for Western, and, hopefully get admitted, or get a conditional acceptance. Then it would be pending your MCAT score. If you meet the 500 MCAT score, that's their minimum requirement, and everything else looks good, and you do a good interview, then they will have a seat for you actually starting that August. So it can be a good opportunity for certain students. It's not for everyone, but it could be an opportunity for certain students. They do require a 3.5 cumulative and science GPA. So this is GPA that would include your post-bac GPA, that would, add into your undergraduate GPA. So when you take classes in a post-bac program, they're undergraduate classes, and so it does affect your undergraduate GPA. Okay, so that's Western. We also have one with St. George's University in Grenada. And so if a student comes in here, they can apply to, to this program at the time of their application to LMU or while they're a student here. A 3.4 LMU GPA is going to be required to get, not just the conditional acceptance, but the full acceptance. Their MCAT, their required MCAT is within 5 points of their average from the prior year. So usually this is around 500-ish or so. The nice thing about this program is that you are guaranteed a $10,000 scholarship to SGU. Okay. So, again, if you're a student here, these are things that we could talk about either in an interview or once you're admitted to the program, we can come up with a plan for you. Okay, criteria for admission into our program. So this is a hard requirement. We need a bachelor's degree from a U.S. accredited school. Unfortunately, we cannot take bachelor's degrees from, from international schools. It has to be from a U.S. accredited school. As I mentioned in the very beginning, we are mostly looking for career changers. And so this would be somebody with a bachelor's degree outside of the hard sciences who has not completed, the majority of the prereqs needed to go to medical or dental school. Again, that said, we will take a small number of academic enhancers every year. And so, our cohort every year, considering the people starting in May and the people starting in August, is usually around 20 to 25. And of that amount, maybe like 3 or 4 are academic enhancers, just to give you kind of a sense of how we break things down. A college level pre-calculus course or higher is required. Okay, so this is really important. You want to have your pre-calculus course done before you matriculate to LMU. So if you haven't taken pre-calculus, it might be, and you're interested in coming to school here, it might be something to look into sooner versus later. We do need to see a pre-calculus course or higher. So if you have calculus, you don't have to go back and do a pre-calculus course, but we do need to see that on a college transcript. So AP courses or AP credits are not going to satisfy this requirement. A minimum GPA, cumulative GPA of 3.3 as an undergrad is very strongly recommended. Now, that said, we have accepted students in the past with GPAs, cumulative GPAs that are lower than that, but we like to see 3.3 or higher. I promised I would come back to this, but a semester of calculus is strongly recommended. So when I was going through that 14-month program and you saw that calculus was added into the fall curriculum, it is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's really tough to do all of those science classes, labs, and have calculus thrown in there. Calculus is the the reason why you would need to do it is because it's a pre or a co-requisite for our physics course. So we can't get around it. We do need a calculus course. But it would be, I think you would be very happy with yourself if you were able to satisfy that prior to coming to LMU. Another thing we're looking for is a demonstrated passion for medicine or dentistry. I forgot to remove veterinary medicine. We don't accept veterinary medicine students anymore, but for medicine or dentistry through extracurricular activities. Okay, so we want to know that medicine or dentistry is a well thought out path for you, and that you're very serious about pursuing these careers. Okay. And so let's talk about extracurricular activities. So for medical school, what you're going to need by the time you go to apply to medical school is some clinical experience, along, which it can include shadowing, some service experience. So this is what we call non-clinical community service. So, not volunteering at a hospital, this might be volunteering with, your church or a soup kitchen or teaching little kids how to play basketball or whatever it is for you. Service is important for medical schools. Leadership is also important, and research is as well. Now, I'll pause there for a second and let you know that at LMU, we do have some research opportunities for our post-bac students. The way that it would work is that our students need to network with faculty once they get here, okay? So unfortunately, and trust me, I've asked, they don't give me a list of available spots in their labs. So students really do need to go, talk to them and see, what they have available, and if it would work out with like the, post-bac timeline. But we do have some of those spots available. For dental school, by the time you're applying to dental school, they're going to want to see, same thing or a lot of the same things, clinical work, shadowing, same type of service work, leadership activities, not so much research, but research is great, but that's not necessarily what they're looking for. Instead, they want activities requiring eye-hand coordination. So the idea here is that, you're going to be working in a little tiny space and they want to know that you have the manual dexterity to be able to do that. And so ways that you might demonstrate that is by playing sports or by doing art, ceramics, that type of thing, playing music. You do not need to have a class per se on a transcript. This can just be a hobby. But they do want to see some type of eye-hand coordination activities. Okay, so when you go to apply to our program, so you don't need to have all of these things. We would like you to have some of these things though, okay? And so I'll go through that more in a second. So application process, the application is open now. So it opened on November 1st. It closes on Valentine's Day. We will take a look at applications that come in on a rolling basis. So if you are, kind of anxious to get things figured out for your next year, I do definitely encourage you to apply early. All right, so just some tips. I like to give some tips to people that have taken the time to come to this session. So for letters of recommendation, only one letter is required. Okay. You can submit more than that if you would like, but one is, you only need to submit one. Okay. We would prefer to see a letter from a faculty member who has taught you in a course. Now, because the population that we're working with are career changers, a lot of our students have actually been out of the, graduated, several years ago, sometimes even many years ago. And so, you would obviously lose touch with faculty from your undergraduate program. So in that case, a work supervisor is completely fine. Okay. But if you do have access to a faculty member letter, we would like to see that. Experiences and achievements. So I encourage you to take your time filling out this section. So As a supplemental document, we do request a resume from you. And sometimes students will bypass the experiences and achievements section because they're like, well, I already gave you my resume. But this section actually gives us a lot more information than a resume does about the experiences that you have had. And so I do encourage you to take your time filling out that section and not rushing through the application. The personal statement, why medicine or dentistry, you know, this is really important to us, right? We want to know that, you know, again, this is a well thought out plan that you have to go into this field. This kind of boils down to an ethical thing for us. Like, we don't want to admit somebody into this program and take their money if that isn't what they want to do. This is the only reason that our program exists, is as a stepping stone into medicine or dentistry. And so again, we want to make sure that that is a well thought out plan on your part. And so you can demonstrate that in your personal statement. And then the last thing that is important to us, well, all of it's important to us, but one of the other top things that's important to us is the supplemental question, why LMU? So, you know, why would you want to come to our school in particular? And just some tips on that, like maybe it's something that I talked about in this session, you know, maybe it's like small class sizes or whatever it is. You know, could be something that came in here or from the session. Potentially, you know, if you were to look at the mission statement of LMU in general, maybe something there resonates with you. Maybe you were referred by a student who has gone through this program. Whatever it is for you, we'd really like to hear about, you know, why you would want to come to our program. Okay. Okay, application timeline. So we're going to look at your application once it's complete. Not everyone will be invited for an interview, but a selected number will be invited for an interview. Again, at the interview, we will be talking about the timeline that works for you. You know, we'll be going through, you know, just doing kind of an analysis of the extracurricular activities that you already have and, you know, what would be recommended. You know, for you before you apply to medical or dental school. We'll talk about, you know, we'll go through your transcript and talk about any classes you've taken in the past that we might waive here. So there's a lot that goes on in those interviews. You know, we want to make sure that we're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us, right? Applicants, again, admitted on a rolling basis. April is when our students start enrolling in courses. And so, you know, May or August is when courses begin. So it's all very fast, right? And so you know, again, our due date is February 14th, or the application deadline is February 14th. It rapidly comes up that all of a sudden you're signing up for classes. And then if you're on the May track, then, you know, you're starting right away. So if you're someone that is, you know, potentially going to need to move, it would probably be advantageous for you to apply on the earlier side. Okay. So cost and financial aid. So I'm going to preface this really quick by saying that I am not a financial aid counselor, and that is a very specific part of, you know, advising on a college campus. And so I'm going to give you just broad strokes of like what I know, but I cannot really go into a ton of detail just because it's not my area. So the cost of our program is currently it's $1,360 per credit. Okay. And so our students would take between, you know, if you're doing between 9 and 10 courses, about, you know, 37 to 40 credits. This is around $50,000 to $54,000 for the entire program. So I had mentioned earlier that 8 courses are required. Most people end up taking 9 courses. That 10th course would be the calculus course. Okay, so again, if you were to get rid of that before you came in, it would lower the total cost of the program for you. We have a financial aid person here. Her name is Jennifer Bond, and she is the expert on financial aid. So when you're admitted to the program, she would be the person to talk to about financing it. Okay. But one thing I can tell you is that as far as federal financial aid goes, if you are awarded federal financial aid as an undergraduate student and you didn't use all of it, use everything that you were awarded, you would or could have the potential to tap into the remainder during fall and spring, just for 2 semesters, not summer, unfortunately, but fall and spring. Okay, so that could be available to you. Um, a lot of our students do end up taking out personal loans to cover the cost of the program. So um, that's pretty much what I can tell you about financial aid. Again, you will have somebody who's dedicated to the post-bac program who will be able to answer questions once you're admitted. All right, so let's see, questions for me. Let's do this. I don't see anything in the chat right now. If you do have questions, feel free to add them. Okay, Elena.
Hi, so I have a question. I was just wondering, I currently fulfilled most of my prereqs for dentistry. I have a couple left. Will this program allow me to just take those prereqs, or do I have to take the full program?
Unfortunately, you have to do the full program. So we wouldn't be available for somebody who only had a couple of classes to do. In that case, you might consider just, enrolling as a non-degree seeking student and taking classes at, a four-year university, just those 2 classes and kind of doing it on your own or potentially a community college.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead. I have just iPhone on there, so I'm not sure what your name is.
Oh, sorry, is it me?
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'm
you.
so sorry, I didn't realize that my name wasn't there. My name is Preeti. Um, Hi. So a question about the pre-calculus requirement. I actually am one of the people. I have AP Calculus. I didn't have calculus in my undergrad. But it's been a while since I did undergrad, so I'm planning to retake it. But I
Mhm,
am currently taking pre-calculus,
mhm.
but the class won't be done until I think right before the end of your admissions deadline.
Okay,
So I was wondering, is it just important to have taken it, or do you need to see a grade in that class?
not yet. We don't need to see a grade yet. I would want to see a grade within 2 weeks of you matriculating to LMU.
I
And so,
see.
yeah, so that would be like if you started in May, I would need it by like May 1st.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay.
Courtney, there's a question in the chat about,
Okay.
yeah, perfect.
Okay, let me see. Okay. So somebody's asking about getting slides later. We are going to send the recording to everybody who signed up for this session.